Welcome to the Golfish Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Goodman. We're changing things up for the rest of spring and summer and moving the podcast to release every other week. As always, we will continue to bring you fascinating interviews with the people behind the players of the PGA, LPGA, Champions Tour, and beyond. Don't forget to rate or leave a review and tell us how we're doing.
You've probably heard the hype, but have you actually considered incorporating CBD into your golf routine? If so, we're confident that our sponsors over at Joint Caddy will make you a CBD believer. Their topical freeze gel is perfect for anyone who experiences aches and pains on the course. It's equipped with a unique roll-on applicator that eliminates any chance of greasy hands affecting your grip and fits perfectly in your golf bag. Or maybe you fall victim to the back nine jitters. Joint Caddy also carries their own blend of oral drops that can help you relax, focus, and ease anxiety of those downhill four-footers. They're also great for sleep so you can dream about that perfect round. All of Joint Caddy's products are cultivated from only the highest quality industrial hemp and free of any solvents, fillers, artificial flavorings, sweeteners, or preservatives. They even have the third-party test results listed right on their website. So head to jointcaddy.com and see what the hype's all about. And while you're there, use promo code GOLFISHJC20 to take 20% off any order.
This week we are joined by Michelle Tesori. You probably know her from the glowing recommendations from Paul Tesori and Kourtney Schenk to have her on our podcast. In this raw and honest interview, Michelle shares what it's like to be married to a PGA Tour caddy, her amazing son Isaiah, the Tesori Family Foundation, and so much more. In this episode, we shed a tear or two, talk about what's next when Paul goes back on tour, and how her faith in God has helped her find balance in the chaos. Let's get started. Michelle, Amy from the Golfish Podcast. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. It seems so early. I don't know why. It's not very sunny out here right now. So I'm like, why is it so dark?
It's sunny here, but my days are starting at like 4:30, so it seems early always.
Yeah.
It just always feels, it doesn't matter what, or by like 11 a.m. it feels like it should be 5 o'clock.
Right.
So it's just exhaustion, I think. I think it's just that.
I'm absolutely sure it is. I have no idea what day it is most of the time. I know the date. I very rarely know what day it is.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know where I am
at this point. Minus Bible study, I wouldn't know if I wasn't writing down the date every single morning at 5 o'clock when I'm doing my quiet time Bible study, just so when I go back to my notes, I can see what day I was doing. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't have any idea what date it was either. I'm sure of that.
I'm with you completely.
I'm sure
I think
of that.
all of this quarantining and just complete adjustment to our lives has been quite interesting.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Oh, so thank you so much for joining me today. I would love to dive into your morning routine because I think that already sounds fascinating and probably more of what I should be doing with my life.
You got it.
But so tell us about yourself. Who is Michelle Tesori? What is your connection to the golf world?
So my husband is Paul Tesori, and he is Webb Simpson's caddy on the PGA Tour. He actually played on tour, but that was the PM years, pre-Michelle years. So I wasn't around for those. And he's been caddying ever since. So been with Webb since, I think this will be we must be going. Well, you know what? The tricky thing is, I don't even know how long the season is going to be this year, or if it's a wraparound season, or if we count this season or don't count. But they started in 2011. So we've been Team Simpson for a really long time and thrilled to be. And I separately have been in the nonprofit space almost my entire career. I started working in sports straight out of college, worked for Major League Baseball, and then went from Major League Baseball into the nonprofit space and have been working in the nonprofit space for years. So we're just going to leave it at that. So, so it doesn't really matter when that was, but
right.
really long time.
And when everyone sees her picture, you're going to be like, yeah, it was like 5 years ago. Nice try, Michelle.
No, not true. Not true. I don't know which picture you're going to show, but I suspect somebody loved me enough to filter them. So, yeah, don't be fooled by what you see on the internet ever. So I have had the pleasure of working in the professional sports world, but on the side that most appeals to me, which is the giving back and loving humanity side. And I've been doing that for about half of my life. So I happen to have the privilege of co-owning a nonprofit management firm with another caddie's wife out on tour, Kelly Guthrie, whose husband, Zach, caddies now for the guy who beat us at Sea Island. So Tyler Duncan. That was a really fun day. Actually, she and I did that half on FaceTime for the playoff there. And so Kelly and I have been working together for years. When I was the CEO of a previous company, I hired Kelly. And when we left that firm together, we started our own company. And we have the privilege of working with several PGA Tour players and managing their charitable giving and desires and process and programs and everything that encompasses all of their giving side of their lives. So I'm all up in the golf space.
Yeah, absolutely. When so PTI Sports Marketing is your company with Kelly, and I was so convinced y'all were sisters. Until, yeah, I mean, your pictures on that website, I was like, oh, how sweet. Like, she works with her sister. And then I was looking at the Tesori Family Foundation. I was like, that's not one of her sister's names. I was like, okay, they just, you just start looking like each other when you're around each other a lot. So
probably, yes. And we would consider each other family. So, and I think a lot of people ask us that question. So you are not the first, you will not be the last.
I bet.
And we're both flattered, equally flattered, I think. So would be happy to be sisters.
Yes. So you're in Florida now, full time, right? That's where you and Paul and the family have made your home, correct?
We do. Paul grew up here. Paul was born in Florida and is one of those unusual people who grew up here and stayed here, or grew up here or didn't grow up in the North. So I'm one of those people.
Yes.
I am a Vermonter and went to the University of Vermont and then very quickly moved south. And so I am still very much a Vermonter, but I have adapted to the climate very, very much, very comfortably adapted to the climate here. So we make our home in Northeast Florida. And we have been here, I've been here since 2008, and Paul's been here all years of his life.
That's so funny. Yeah, my husband was born in Florida, and was here there until he was 5, and then moved to Pennsylvania for a short stint, and then was raised essentially in Cincinnati. So he's one of those that didn't stay. So totally understand that.
Yep.
It's very common, but I mean, it's equally as common. I mean, Cincinnatians, I had a lot of friends right out of college that all moved down to Tampa. And it was just this big cohort of people that moved to Tampa. And I'm like, what is going on in Tampa? Like, everyone just moved down there, and only 1 or 2 have actually come back. Everyone else has stayed down there, which I just think is so fascinating.
I did my years. I put in my time in Tampa, and have fond memories, and still have a local phone number to that area.
Oh, so
I have been on the west side of Florida also, and I love both coasts. So I don't have a best coast. This is home for me now on the east and the northeast side. Tampa's a bit warmer on the mid-ish southwest side. And I spent years there, Major League Baseball for me.
Okay.
Those years were spent with the Tampa Bay. They were then the Devil Rays. It was this will age me. I go back to the Fred McGriff, Jose Canseco years when they were at a rainbow logo and absolutely terrible, working desperately hard to set records for the most number of losses in a Major League Baseball season. So those were my years there.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, we're in Cincinnati, so we now compete very naturally for some of those titles.
You do. You absolutely
God
do.
love them.
It's funny how it doesn't really matter what sport you're in. That's one of the really fun things about golf, is that a ton of my Major League Baseball friends, contacts, associates, I see in the golf space. So I actually, Fred McGriff and I became friendly when I worked for the Rays. And I see Freddie every year, talk to him a couple times a year. I see him at the Masters every year. He's working in Atlanta. I run into more Major League Baseball players or minor league guys who came up through the Tampa system that moved on to somewhere else. I worked for minor league baseball in Vermont. It's all crazy small sports world, but it turns out almost all of those folks that I came across have some connection to golf in some way now.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the coolest things about golf as a sport.
Yeah, we thought it was really interesting when we met Paul. We were at the Waste Management, and the day or two, I'm trying to think, it was the Sunday before everything started. We found like a little golf tournament that was going on, and there were a couple of professional football players there that then also were in the pro-ams for Waste Management. And it's just so interesting to see how much the game of golf has transcended into all these other sports like Major League Baseball and the NBA and the NFL. Just over time, where it's become like this big thing where people are following like Tony Romo and Steph Curry and Larry Fitzpatrick. Like that's becoming like, watching them play golf has become such a thing now.
It is crazy to me. It's amazing to me that we can, I have a former client who is a former NFL player who I remember very clearly telling me probably 10 years ago that when he was done playing in the NFL, he was just going to be a pro golfer. And he also told me he was just going to run a marathon without training. And I thought maybe, but when he told me he was going to be a pro golfer, I said, that's fun. Why don't you send me your swing and I'll send it to Paul. And I did. And the really fun thing about athletes, I think, professional athletes, is there is a skill set you can bring over to golf for sure. It can help. The problem with me is I was a softball player. That does not translate terribly well to golf, and that's taken some years of undoing for me. And my husband is saying to me, please slow down your swing. And so there are some swings on tour I can model now, and trying to get that uncomfortable pause at the top that makes me want to get through the transition period. It's not pretty. But it is fun to me how many professional athletes think that they can transition to golf, how few are successful at it even in a Korn Ferry opportunity kind of way, and how good these guys are that play on any of the professional golf tours. That it is not a skill. It's not like basketball. You can't go out and play a pickup game with your friends.
Right.
And teach yourself to be a really good basketball player. And nobody is just grabbing a basketball and going out and playing on a professional tour either. But the fact of the matter is golf is available to everybody. And there are athletes that when they retire have time, and a lot of them choose to spend that time with this new passion or passion that they now are able to commit more time to. And it comes across all aspects of sports, I believe. And the other thing that's incredible about golf is that it's not just available to an incredible athlete either. So part of our charitable foundation programming is the All-Star Kids Clinic, and it's opening up golf to kids who have some identified special need, whether it's physical or intellectual or emotional, whatever that looks like for them and for their family. If being provided access to golf is not something that's happened for them, we're able to do that. And we can do that for little ones. Isaiah had a golf club in his hand when he was 2. What's really cool is that golf really truly is that sport that everyone can, at the very least, attempt and for sure can enjoy. minus those of us who are too competitive to make it an enjoyable experience because we're never going to be good at it. That I'm just raising both hands. That would be me.
I am a decently competitive person, but golf is the one thing where I'm like, even if I just completely blow the whole round, I'm like, oh, it was so nice to be outside. This was great. Had so much fun with you. And I'm like, la-di-da. Rich will be like, what was your score? I'm like, not a clue.
Like, no
idea.
Stop keeping track.
Yep.
That's not fun.
Doesn't seem like my problem today.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree with that.
So we definitely have to talk about Isaiah because he is just the cutest little boy. And we were looking at, so we're expecting, and we were looking at the at your website, and there were some newborn pictures of him with golf gear, and Rich is looking for a new bag. And so the one that he's like in the bag, I was like, well, this is the kind of bag you need to get because I need one of these pictures. And he's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
He's like, could you pick like the largest bag out there for us to do that? I'm like, it's fine.
So couple things, but first, congratulations. So exciting. When are you due?
End of May. Right around the corner.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Holy
yes.
moly. We will be praying for you.
Thank
it's
you.
An interesting time to be pregnant for
yes,
sure.
It is.
So we will be praying for you and the medical team and the doctors, and goodness, if we can hopefully be through the madness of all of this by then.
Yes,
it might be a miracle, but we aren't afraid to ask for it.
Yes.
And secondly, yes, Isaiah. So man, that kid. There's really no good starting point. So why don't I just go with answering your question?
Love
that
it.
bag is, in fact, I believe, a President's Cup caddy gift.
Oh, that's even better.
So, and you can tell Rich that is actually a carry bag. So it's not the worst. It's not the heaviest. It's not the biggest bag.
Perfect.
They're very reasonably priced, and you can get that thing logoed. There are a million ways to do that, and you should. It's really cool. So that photo shoot was an incredible blessing because when Isaiah was born, we had some complications that arose immediately following his birth, and I think the medical team had some expectation that Isaiah would not survive, and so everything became very real and very scary, very fast.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to do a photo shoot with that baby 10 days after he was born, I believe, let's see, he came home from the hospital. Yes, I believe the shoot was 10 days or 11 days after he was born. And so we're talking, 9 days before that, there were life-saving measures put in place. So that kid has been, he is the epitome of joy. He is the single greatest gift we have ever been given. He is a better human than I am. And I can't even, you can't even quantify it because it's just innately in him. It's what God gave him. And I remember, so our son, for those of you who are listening who don't know, our son was diagnosed with Down syndrome shortly after his birth. And Down syndrome is a third copy of the 21st chromosome. So all of us have we have 23 pairs of chromosomes, 46 in total, and Isaiah has 47. So he has a third copy of that 21st chromosome. And I remember Dowd, Webb's wife, Dowd, telling me the night Isaiah was born, the tour was in Hawaii, and Teddy Scott, who caddies for Bubba Watson, normally was caddying for Webb that week because I really wanted Paul to not be halfway around the world when I was expecting within a day or two. So so Teddy worked for Paul that week on Webb's bag, and when Isaiah was born, and there were some immediate, legitimate, life-threatening concerns, a prayer chain began, and the folks in Hawaii were 5 hours behind us. Isaiah was born at 6:11 at night, so it was the middle of the afternoon, and Webb immediately engaged a prayer group, and for Paul, that group includes Bubba Watson and Teddy Scott, and in any case, so that group was all praying, and I was in touch with Angie Watson and Dowd, And I remember Dowd very specifically saying to me that she was pretty sure that Joy was on that extra chromosome. She said that the night he was born, she sent me a scripture verse, several, but the one that we prayed over constantly was Isaiah 41:10. That was Dowd kind of praying over Isaiah verse. And we talked about how this child, he'd not taken terribly many breaths at that point, and Dowd was sure, absolutely confident that it was Joy. That would be the thing. And if there is an adjective to describe Isaiah, that would be the one. I think that's the one. It's one of the 7 fruits of the Spirit, and it's the one our kid has the most of, I think.
Did you know his diagnosis prior to giving birth?
No. And in fact, because I'm not a spring chicken, in the state of Florida, when you are over a certain age, when you are pregnant, you get sent to a specialty facility. And as part of that, there's some work in progress with that particular facility, not to be named, but they're not known for being terribly forthcoming with their requests for testing. So we were under the impression there were certain tests I had to have done, and that there was really only one we could decline, which is not entirely true. But in any case, because God is perfect in all things, Romans 8:28, the only test we had declined was the amniocentesis, which we knew we could decline. And we chose to decline that test, but we had other tests done, some of the standard tests, but then there were other tests that you do not have to do. But it had been communicated to us that they were necessary, and it felt necessary. And we did those tests. And I had during my pregnancy, the lowest possible percentage of having a child born with Down syndrome, even at my age.
Isn't that, it's so fascinating because we did a test very early on. I did not have an interest in doing genetic testing unless I absolutely had to. But we did a test early on, and they called with the results, and they were like, you might want to consider genetic testing or an amnio. And I was like, it doesn't matter, I guess, to me. So it was like, I'm not going to go through all of that, especially once they started telling you the increased risk factors with an amnio.
Yes.
And I was like, that doesn't sound appealing at all. Like, why? I mean, and I get that there are absolute medical necessities where you need to have that, but that was, I can understand where you were on that one, where it was like, no, this is just not something that we need to do at this point. Because I mean, when Rich and I talked about it, it was like, it won't make a difference. Like, we might prepare a little bit differently, but that is literally all it would be. So
right. And
we'll just go through it.
Right. And for us, it's so cool. It's amazing in life, the things that we do worry about, regardless of what the Bible says, for those of us who are believers, and we still can't quite get ourselves away from it. But what fascinates me always in hindsight, when I look back at what God was doing, and we will do that someday with this coronavirus. If you're looking for the blessings in it, they are there. They are there right now. They're just hard to see because what's happening in the world is devastating. But in hindsight, when you look back, there are always these things that you think to yourself, gosh, of course God planned that perfectly. Of course he did. So I think there are a couple blessings in the fact that we didn't know. One is I'm a little high type A. And had I known that there was a diagnosis during pregnancy, I probably would have spent most of my pregnancy trying to figure out other things, how to make it the best. How do I I can change how God is developing my child in the womb, not to change his diagnosis, but somehow thinking that if I can learn all the things or do all the things or find all the doctors and get all the right therapists, that would have been my pregnancy. And it thankfully was not. And then when he was born, I think God knew the same thing about me had not changed, that Paul and I are all about soaking up information and learning all the things. And the Down syndrome diagnosis was an absolute aside conversation. It was not the primary concern. Here's kind of how that conversation went. a bunch of doctors I did not know were in my room within about 60 seconds of Isaiah being born. The room just started filling with strange people, and they had taken Isaiah to weigh him. And then a nurse who had been with me, I'd been in active labor for 39 hours.
Oh my gosh, girl.
It doesn't happen to everyone. Don't worry. We had changed shifts several times, but I had seen some of the nurses now 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And the nursing team, I had been in labor for so long that they had given me kind of one last, hey, look, if we can't get you where we need to get you here in the next hour, we are going to have to do a cesarean section. And they've done those checks in a 39-hour period multiple times. And Paul and I just kept saying, hey, listen, at what point do we get to a risky stage?
Right.
And this was the first conversation we had about the fact that we were within an hour of being at a place where, in order for Isaiah to have enough oxygen and to maintain an appropriate heart rate and to protect me, we were an hour out.
Mm-hmm.
And our desire was to have the most natural, well, minus the drugs. I'm not a fool. I took all the... and bless all of you who do not, and double bless you if you've done it more than once, knowing what happens the first time. So minus that, our desire was to have him born in the safest medical possibilities that exist, and that is a vaginal standard birth. So for us, that was what we decided to do and had prayed about. And so the team had been in praying over Isaiah at one point, over me and Isaiah, early in the morning on that Saturday. And he wasn't born until 6:00 at night. But the team had become so close to us. People who were not my nurses who were not assigned to me, were coming in and praying with us. And
that's
it was
incredible.
really cool. And what that enabled to have happen is that the conversation that took place when I realized something was going on, and I'm looking around the room and they're stitching me up, and my doctor's doing what she's doing. She's busy and she needed to stay focused. And then all of a sudden there are all these coats, white coats, and they're not anyone I know. And it's all happening very fast, but very much in slow motion. And then our nurse walked very calmly back to me, and she said, hey, listen, Isaiah, I had asked what his APGAR was. I wanted to know, no, he wasn't crying, and I was super confused, and he'd just been born, but I read all the books.
Right.
I need an APGAR somewhere around 10, please. And she said 9. And I'm like, okay, cool. But he wasn't crying. It turns out our kid just doesn't cry. So ever, really. So, he was smiling. If you look at his weight photo, he's actually smiling when they're weighing him. He came out of the womb smiling. That is who this kid is. And so she very calmly says to me, hey, Michelle, I can't give Isaiah back to you right now. And she's right near my face, and she's not talking very loud. And she said, they just need to check a couple things. Okay. And I said, okay. And she said it super calmly to me. And so she said, I can't put Isaiah back in your arms. They'd swaddled him. And then she said, we've got to take Isaiah for a minute. Okay. And I said, okay. And then a doctor I don't know said to me at some point in that very blurry period of a couple of minutes, that there were some serious concerns. They were rushing Isaiah to the NICU. And hey, was I aware that he had markers for Down syndrome? And I was like, this is exactly what I said.
That escalated quickly.
Very quickly. And I said, wait, what? And he said, markers for Down syndrome. I said, no. Why is he going to what's going on? And he said, well, we're not sure, but, and then it proceeded there was a cloudy spinal tap. There were some concerns about his brain. And I said, I need you to tell me, what is the gravest medical condition that you are concerned about? And he said, we actually don't know. I said, give me percentages. And he said, most likely scenario would be that Isaiah has blood on his brain. It appeared that he had a seizure at birth, and he said something else. And then he repeated to me, were you aware Isaiah had markers for Down syndrome? And I said, is Down syndrome going to kill him? And he said, no. And I said, then I don't care.
Right.
And then they all leave the room, and I'm like, we should probably talk about this. There's a lot happening. But our diagnosis experience was very, very different. And then we called our pediatrician, who left her dinner. We won't say what hospital or what her name is, because she very fancily maneuvered through HIPAA laws to make her way into our room. And on the phone on the way there, she said to me, "Do not talk to another doctor without me present. Listen to me. Isaiah," she said very clearly to us on the phone, "if Isaiah has Down syndrome, he is absolutely perfect."
Oh.
And she said it to me and Paul on speakerphone. She asked everybody else to leave the room. And she said, "You need to hear me. People are going to come in that room and they're going to start talking to you about stuff. You need to tell them to wait until I get there. But the one thing you need to hear from me is that if Isaiah has a Down syndrome diagnosis, you guys, he's perfect. It changes nothing about him." And that was the diagnosis that we remember. And then it was just a blur of days, right? So they couldn't do what they needed to do at the hospital we were at. They asked us if we wanted a chaplain for last rites. Our pastor was in the waiting room. We brought him in instead. And I actually prayed over Isaiah with my finger in the incubator. It's as close as we could get to him.
Oh my gosh.
And then they rushed him off to another hospital. And 7 days later, that kid was home.
That's so crazy.
God is so good. I think God knew that we needed some form of distraction, so that, because he had this life plan for us, right? He needs us to be advocates. Jeremiah 29:11, God had this plan for us long before I was ever born. He knew exactly what he was asking from us. And part of that is to advocate for kids like Isaiah. And in order for us to do that, I think we had to experience these things exactly the way God designed them. And are they hard? Man, they're hard, but it is the closest to Jesus I've ever felt. The closest I have ever felt to Jesus in my entire life, which means I've got more work to do, because it means I'm not as close today as I was that night. At about 7 p.m. on January 4th, with my finger inside that incubator, I know I'm not capable as a mom of being comfortable with the prayer that I prayed over our kid. And the prayer that I prayed was that I knew how much we loved him already, but I knew Jesus loved him infinitely more. And if Jesus needed him, that was not our desire, but that we were surrendering. And I know as a mom, I'm not capable of that. And there was peace in that somehow for me. That's a place I need to get back to. I hope I don't ever have to have that scary experience to get there, but that's the goal for all of us that are believers, is to be that close to Jesus all the time, to live in full surrender. And I was there that night. And then here we are. I'm looking out the window right now. He's fishing on the dock. He's the happiest kid on the planet. And we wouldn't have it any other way. I would not change Isaiah for the world, but you can be darn sure Paul and I are going to try to change the world for him. And so that's what we're doing.
You know, when people see him on your Instagram or his own Instagram, it's so funny because he either has a like huge smile on his face or his other one is like this pose that's just like, yep, I know, I got it. Yeah. Like they're so great. I love it.
Confidence.
No, it doesn't look like it.
No, he doesn't. Our pastor here in Jacksonville, one of the sermons he preaches is about the thing that men in particular, but that people desire, and that men in particular can spend their lives being worried, am I good enough? Am I good enough? And I remember a couple of years ago calling Paul on the road, and I couldn't reach him, so I called Dowd and I said, hey, you're not going to believe this. Listen to this. If men spend their lives worrying, am I good enough? Isaiah doesn't.
Right.
Like he's confident, but he's not selfish. But I can tell you, he is not worried. He does not spend his time worrying about what people think of him. He wants you to be pleased with him. He wants to make you happy. He wants to be with you, but he does not appear to be a human that worries. He does not do what the rest of us do, which is concerned about what the world thinks. Isaiah is concerned about what Isaiah thinks. And I think there's a gift in that. There's so much in each of us as sinners that spends a significant amount of time worried about what the world thinks of us. Mm-hmm. And of all the people on the planet that have the potential to be harassed by the world, Isaiah is in one of the highest percentage categories to be bullied, to be emotionally abused, to be taken advantage of, to be told that he's worthless or that his life is not worth living. That's a lie. And what's really cool about it is if we do our job as parents and as he grows up, walk through what that looks like with him and what Jesus says about him, he is not innately concerned. And so for a child who's at risk of being more bullied than others, God has given him this gift of loving and having an immense amount of empathy. He cannot process when somebody else is crying. Watching him when somebody around him is hurting is an incredible gift. He just wants to make it better. So he'll go up, put his arm around you, and he'll say, okay. And then he'll say, need kisses. And then he will pick something to kiss, something. And then he'll say, okay, all better. And it's really a selfish all better. He's like, for me to feel good, I'm going to need you to stop crying. So I just need
get
you
it
to
together.
Be better. So good news. I kissed you. You're all better. But there's something very simplistic in how God created his little brain and his little heart about being in the moment and being able to enjoy the moment and not worrying, is he good enough? And God gave that to him. And then it's our responsibility as parents to continue to foster and nurture that in him so that he doesn't believe anything the world might tell him that he is or isn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be great if we could raise all of our children to not have to go through, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you growing up, but just the torture of middle school and high school. I mean, you're a girl, so middle school and high school girls. If we could just
we're not a nice bunch.
No, if
Junior
we could
high
just
school girls
stop
are not a kind bunch of people in general. This is true.
I tried to graduate high school early. I was like, get me out of here. And I mean, it wasn't even, I look back and I'm like, man, it was nothing like it is today, but it was still brutal. You know,
agreed.
Because I didn't have social media. Like, I had AOL Instant Messenger. Like, I could at least log off and make you go away. You can't make anyone go away now. Like, it's just there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thankful that I didn't grow up in an era where it was constantly on.
Same.
Constantly on.
Yeah.
So thankful.
Yes, I completely agree. So when Isaiah was born, Tesori Family Foundation had been around for a couple of years, and you and Paul had been doing a lot of charity work, and philanthropy over those 2 years and started to shift a little once Isaiah was born. Is that right?
That's true. The foundation was established in 2009, right after I moved to Florida. And Paul and I just wanted to do something in his hometown, and in the surrounding areas in Northeast Florida. And we had some things that were personal to us. Paul, when he was a Gator, he went to the University of Florida, played golf. One of the requirements that coach had was that they do some community service hours. And so that time for him was spent at a senior center. And he used to play games with seniors there. And when we established the foundation, he said to me, this is a non-negotiable. One of the things I want to do is I want to spend some time and spend some money or whatever that looks like, Michelle, at a senior center. I'm like, done.
Oh, that's cool.
and we are pet lovers, specifically dog lovers. So there were some things that mattered very much to us. I actually, it turns out, before Isaiah was born, I grew up very much associated with the Special Olympics in Vermont and was the student chair of the Special Olympics when I was in college and had volunteered lots of my life there during those years. And so I had a heart for people with different needs. I have a younger sister who's profoundly deaf. And so my parents had exposed us, and I'd always just had this love for God. Again, it's God just prepping my heart for this first little boy. And so we had been financially giving to the Special Olympics down here. And so we were less program focused and more money giving focused. We would volunteer our time and go to various places, but we did giving at the holidays for people that were in need. We did then and still continue to do some private giving when there is a situation in our area where, it could be anything from the loss of a family member or a family fire or something that just tugs at us. And because of who Paul is and because we've gotten connected to the media in town, we are able to figure out how to connect with some of those families in ways that other people might not. And then we're able to give anonymously. And so we've been doing that for a really long time. When Isaiah was born, it just reminded us what God had already placed on our hearts. So we did not cancel any of our other giving. We didn't cancel any of the other things we were doing. We just added to it. And so we added a Buddy Baskets program to provide baskets for every baby that is born or adopted in this town, in our county, and then the surrounding counties, Northeast Florida and South Georgia, for any babies born or adopted with Down syndrome here that make this area home. It's about $3,500 worth of goods that have absolutely nothing to do with Down syndrome. It's just, we just want you to focus on the fact that congratulations, you just had a baby. Sometimes that gets lost when you have a child with a medical diagnosis and you spend all your time worrying about that thing. And the thing that you look back and miss is that, particularly if you're a parent of other kids, which is what was shared with me, Isaiah is my only. And so other parents would share with me, unlike my other kids, I just didn't celebrate the birth of this baby because I was too focused on all these other things. And people don't know what to say. They don't know if they should say congratulations or I'm sorry. If you're listening, please don't say I'm sorry. We get what your intent is, but none of us are sorry. So, and I am not one of those advocates that gets mad about stuff like that. The problem is, if we aren't willing to have the hard conversations about things like people using the R word or people saying I'm sorry or not using people first language, or if we aren't willing to have those hard conversations in a meaningful way, then we're actually part of the problem, because we can't simultaneously complain about other people doing it and then just go on social media and bicker and yell about those people, but not actually have a real conversation with people who really just might not know. If you're not told, if you're not exposed to it, you don't know. So those things have become important to us as we've navigated all of this. And then to circle back, we do the Buddy Baskets with very, very little to no focus on an actual Down syndrome diagnosis, but just life stuff. And they're all personalized for every family member. We have an incredible executive director. Jenna Lancaster is one of the greatest gifts we've ever been given. She manages all of our programs now. And my goodness, we could not survive without her. And then we added the All-Star Kids Clinic, a golf clinic for kids with special needs. The goal is to have that in every PGA Tour city in the next 3 years. And we are not going to stop trying regardless of this coronavirus. We will try to stick to that same target, and we will adjust as we need to, but our goal remains the same. Our goal was 20 cities this year. That goal might have to change because if there are not PGA Tour events, you can't do a clinic. So we've had to cancel a bunch, and that's disappointing to us. But listen, human safety, it's really important, and we all need to take this very seriously. And so we have canceled some events, and we have gotten permission from some of our larger donors who had money earmarked for specific things. And we have redirected those funds to specifically support vulnerable communities during this time of crisis. We have an incredible board that allows us to make recommendations. They approve any spends over a certain amount of money. And it's just part of our board commitment to hold Paul and I accountable for continuing to do the mission that God called us to. So we have people that hold us accountable, and we aren't just out here doing what we want to do. We've got people that are responsible in part for maintaining the integrity of what the mission is for the foundation. And so we added programs, and then we specifically focused on some folks with special needs of all ages. And then we expanded some of our existing programs because after Isaiah was born, it was such a public experience. PGA Tour players our tour family got very close very quickly. And it was very public. It was on national news networks. Mm-hmm. Stories of Isaiah ran in national media. They ran on the Golf Channel. They ran, NBC did a very long international piece on Isaiah. That exposure, while completely uncomfortable for me, if I'm able to remind myself why God is asking us to do that, and as long as we stay focused on a mission and it not being about us, because regardless of how many podcasts we do, please know it's not about us. It's not about us at all. I say no a lot. You're the first podcast I've actually ever done.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're my pleasure. I say no, and then I ask Paul, because I have to be really comfortable with the intent behind what we're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And if we can't authentically share who we are and what we know about what we've been called to do, then we can't soften down or tone down what we believe in order to share with the world. And that makes some people uncomfortable, and that's okay with me. It just means that I can't turn off, how we feel about Jesus or how we feel about people with special needs in order to get your numbers to be a specific way or to appeal to a certain audience. This is who we are. So it's a really cool, that's a really long answer, but
it's perfect.
This incredible opportunity to expand some of our existing programming and then to focus on some new programming that we otherwise may have just been committing money to, but not time or actual participation in programming. And we've been able to do both. It's really a blessing, honestly.
Well, I think you bring up a really interesting point too about not quieting your message in terms of your religious beliefs, but also your support for special needs, because Rich and I were talking about this last night. We've done quite a few interviews. Obviously, we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary, but quite a few of our interviews have brought up God and religion and what it has done for their game or their family or their ability to travel and leave their family and know that it's going to be okay. And it's just so interesting because you don't hear that a lot from other sports. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
you might see someone hit a home run and point to the sky, and they don't necessarily talk about God. They say that was for their mom who passed away and they know they're looking down on them or something like that. But there is no fear with the people, at least that we have spoken to, connected to the PGA to say this is what we believe in. And I think that is such a powerful testament to you all.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think everybody who would hear you say that would be on the receiving end of that would say to you, yes, it's not about us. And when you give your life to Jesus, what you know is that it's not all, our pastor Joby Martin, who's our pastor at the Church of 1122, would say, it's not all puppies and unicorns and rainbows. That's not how it works. In fact, the Bible is very clear that if you're not being persecuted for your beliefs, maybe you need to check what you're doing, because the Bible is clear that you will face trials and tribulations in this world as a believer. And but Jesus has come to take away all of those fears. And so the beauty of all of that for those of us who believe is that I've been at a place in my walk many, 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 many years ago where I just didn't understand a relationship with Jesus. And I thought it was all about this whole religion thing. And it's not. It's about this relationship. And once I was able to navigate that and really dove into scripture and started to understand who God is and what that looks like, that group on tour, the tour has done such a tremendous job being a family, creating this family environment. It's the only sport in the world where you're traveling together.
Yeah.
You're with the same group of people almost always, and you're with them almost every week.
Yeah.
And the tour has some incredible mentors, and you've got awesome things like Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and you have College Golf Fellowship, which is just phenomenal. And you've got these incredible things in the golf space. I don't know why God created, the ability for some of our guys to be more vocal, our guys and our gals. We did a Bible study the week of TPC before it was canceled at my home. There were 11 wives that came, wives and girlfriends.
Oh, wow.
And it was awesome. It was absolutely incredible. And what I think maybe the difference is that because you're all seeing each other all the time and it's a week-long event each week, they have Bible studies on specific nights each week. I think because it's such an individual sport and it's such an unusual divide of time, right? It's a 5.5 hour round. If you're at Pebble, it's a 65-hour round. And Pebble's awesome. It's such a pretty place, but goodness, it takes forever. But it's hard to complain when you're out there and it's beautiful. Those unique opportunities give these guys who are walking together in a small group of 4 plus, walking bears and standard bearers and rules officials. You're with these same guys for, at least for the first 2 days, you're with the same group. And it gives, I think, our guys a unique perspective to be able to be around others and to learn from others. And it gives a great opportunity to share. And because there's a group of believers out there that are supporting each other, constantly with each other, constantly connecting with each other, I think it's just a unique golf space. And I think it's probably the way the sport itself is set up that lends to those unique relationships that you then see play out. And you hear about Jesus a little bit more. And those guys, if you look, are not always the most well-loved guys on tour by the quote unquote world. And that's okay. That's okay. They know whose they are, and they're confident in that, and they're not afraid to say it. Life is far more than a golf score or a championship or a World Series or a Super Bowl. It's just not. That isn't what the epitome of life is. Not winning the Masters or getting a Super Bowl ring. And when that's put in perspective, I think it frees you up to focus on the things that do matter. Loving others, loving everybody.
Yeah.
I
think that's what is happening right now too, right? I mean, because everyone, it seemed like it. I mean, I was shocked when all sports started getting canceled. And I'm like, wait, what do we do on the weekend? Like, what do we watch? What is there? Like, golf is gone for weeks and weeks. Or, I primarily watch golf, but other people were like, what about the NBA? And what about college basketball and all these things? And I think it has put, a lot into perspective in a way that's like, there are other things. And I love all of these, posts that are going out that are like, the sun isn't canceled, family isn't canceled, talking to people and being there isn't canceled. You just need to maintain a social distance or see them on Zoom or something like that. But there's just so much reminder going out there right now of like, you do not, like, everything you thought was this highest priority, everything that needed to get done, it is just shifting the mindset of a lot of people right now because you can't do those same things. So I think it puts it into perspective, those that have not, kind of realized that on their own in the past.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's definitely true. It's been a really cool the initial panic of like, Paul and I, we're laying in bed when we got the text the Thursday night at TPC, and, we'd heard rumblings, of course, and we'd all been tour players and wives and caddies and their wives, and we're all texting each other. And we had heard rumblings while we were out on the course. And then we knew that Friday was going to be played initially without fans. And then we get the text late Thursday night that, no, that's not how this is going down. We actually are going to postpone or cancel this thing. Nobody, in my opinion, handled it better than Commissioner Jay Monahan. What a class act that guy is. How incredibly fortunate are we that he is the head of the tour.
Absolutely.
What an incredible leader and that human being who spent his entire weekend volunteering, by the way. So just nuts to me. Just insane. What a class act. But the initial response, if you could go back to our phones from that night, the 5 minutes following the text that we got from the tour saying the round was canceled, panic. What are we doing with that? What are we doing with our
right?
What do we do now? Here's what's really cool about that. I think God uses that sometimes for us to go, hey, really, where are your priorities? Where are your priorities? If you think golf is life,
we're going to fix that really quickly.
Double check that. Yeah,
yeah.
Maybe we're just going to check that thing at the door. We're going to check that thing. And that's how God works. It's kind of cool. So we've had the opportunity to spend a whole lot of family time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, it allows you a really cool opportunity as a married couple to work on your communication skills. So for those of us who are used to having our spouses on the road a whole bunch, we're all up in each other's space all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's just been cool watching how God is teaching me, man, be suspicious of your heart at all times, because the more tired you get, the more anxious you get. It's a really cool opportunity to be introspective. And we've had this awesome family time. Paul is just itching to get back to golf, just like everybody else on tour is, but he is eating up this time with family. It's been a gift, honestly, just a tremendous gift.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is, there's obviously adjustment. Rich comes up to our home office and he's here from 7 to 5. So people are like, isn't it driving you crazy that he's home? I'm like, outside of him coming downstairs for food, I really don't see him that much. It's not really, I can yell upstairs. I guess that's the difference between being able to yell upstairs and ask him something versus text messaging him. But outside of that, it to me, it doesn't currently feel that different. But I told him, I was like, if we're still in this sort of lockdown when we have a newborn, I was like, this will be great. I will have a body here to help me. That will be fantastic. Yeah. Do you hear that baby screaming? I'm obviously not doing the right thing right now. I need help.
Yeah. Again, all the blessings in between. They're hard to see sometimes when you hear the scary, scary numbers. It's hard. This is not easy. I just, right before I walked into this podcast, I went in and kissed my husband, big, big, big kiss. And I just looked at him and I said, man, this stuff's not easy. It just isn't. It just isn't. And that's the reality of where we are in the world right now. We live in a fallen world. These are things that happen, but they don't happen without God's permission. And so I think if we're able to regroup and refocus on the things that make us human and compassionate during this time, we're certainly going to learn a lot about society, and we're learning a lot about ourselves. And I think we can use this for just incredible blessings down the road.
Absolutely. So you alluded to it and you talked about it a little bit, about Pebble and about the players and things like that. What is it like being essentially a wife on the tour and having Paul travel, but also having some of these incredible opportunities to travel all over the world? I loved following you all in Australia. That was just the coolest thing. And when they panned on you, I know I texted you when they panned on you when USA won. I was like, oh my God, I know them. It was just so exciting to see just the joy that everyone had at that moment, to just see the team and everybody together. But what is it like for you traveling or having Paul gone and traveling so much?
Yeah, it's awesome and it's really hard. So Isaiah and I don't do a ton of traveling. He's in school. He's in a typical school. So he's on a school calendar schedule. He's not in school right now. His school is actually meeting private schools in Florida have had the ability to stay open to serve the families that have medical care workers that need to have care for their kids or their kids in school so that they can continue serving. So his school is open, but he is in that extra vulnerable risk category. One of the things that comes with an extra chromosome is a weakened respiratory system that's vulnerable. So he's moved from fishing to the pool, so I don't think he's terribly upset. But but his school is open, so he's in school year round, not year round, but and then we do summer camps with him, or he's with us or me, and then so we have a short window when Isaiah could travel. There are weeks that we keep on tour that we always travel as a family. The Masters is one of them, so missing that week is disappointing. It's one of our favorite places to go as a family. Especially when it's around Easter. The Watsons and the Simpsons and our kiddos, we all gather for an Easter egg hunt at the Masters every year.
Oh, that sounds
those
so
things
cool.
are awesome memories.
Yeah.
That's just one of the things. So one of those awesome blessings parts is these really cool relationships that you get to have. And it's unlike any other sports family. I've been in sports my whole life. It's unlike any other sports family I've ever been a part of. The really hard part is, I think people just aren't aware, but there was a stretch last year. Paul was gone 52 out of 53 days. That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
And when I say gone, I mean gone, not at home and did not see us. And, outside of FaceTime, that's what you get.
Wow.
And I expect, so we're trying to mentally prepare for if the tour comes back.
There's not going to be time off.
There's not going to be time off. And we understand that. All of us understand that. Kelly Guthrie and I have been talking about that. Like, gosh, we might be without our husbands for a long, long time here.
Right.
And we understand that that's the job. And it's hard. But when they are home, they're home. And that's nice. So it's a give and take situation. And Paul and I have kind of navigated early on in our marriage. We can go about 2 weeks, both ends of the spectrum. I can handle about 2 weeks at home together and 2 weeks on the road together. That's kind of our, before we start going bonkers either way. And we love having him home. I'm joking, but it's kind of true.
It's just a transition. I mean, when you're used to just doing your own thing. Yeah.
Just what you get used to, right? So it's what it's become standard for us. So you learn to make it work. And then when things change, you're like, all right, we're going to have to figure out either how to be gone for 7 weeks or how to have you home for a whole lot of time. I'm going to need you to go find out a new hobby. Find a new hobby. We have things to do. But it is incredible, and it's an incredible opportunity to have family time. So it's the best of both worlds, and then it's also really, really hard. But what a tremendous gift to explore the world. And you talked about team events. They're some of my favorite memories on tour. Team events, when you've got 12 team members and caddies and spouses, it's such a small group of people. You get to know everybody really well. I was talking with Tiger's girlfriend, Erica, about this at a sushi lunch a while back, and just talking about, like, without those events, because you're paired with different people every week, I think it allows you to really deepen your relationships. And in fact, just saying that just reminds me I need to text her and check on them and see how they're doing too. It's a family. It really is. I hashtag that a lot. I'm not great on social media. I have a lot of parenting I need to do, but so it's kind of like a fallback thing. I understand why it's important, but I'm not great at it all the time. I know how it works, but I just don't have time to get there.
Yeah.
Paul does a great job. But golf family is not a joke to us. It is real. It's a real thing. And it extends far beyond players and caddies. It's media. It's tour officials. It's tournament directors that have become, we call the tournament director at Sanderson Farms Uncle Steve. And I mean, it's real stuff. We are we are close. I'm texting the commissioner's wife as I'm watching him try not to break down on television. It's a golf family, and we've talked about some of the new players and caddies coming up on tour and just encouraging them to dive in. This is a family, dive in. Those team events allow for you to do that on a totally different scale, particularly the Ryder Cup. The Ryder Cup does it incredibly well, and the tour is working to mimic some of those things to get the President's Cup on par. Both events are amazing, but the Ryder Cup truly understands how important it is for that team environment. And the President's Cup just, I think, because it's not the Ryder Cup, and anybody who's a massive golf fan knows the difference, I think, between the two. But the tour is working really, really hard under the commissioner, the new commissioner, to really look at how do we make those team events family events, and what does that look like? And I'm excited for next year and what that looks like. And I don't even know if we're having the Ryder Cup this year. So
I know. It was really interesting. I thought this year to watch the President's Cup, or last year, I guess, 2019, to watch it. And I felt like they shared a lot more of the history and the differences and things to look for in particular, I don't want to say they were comparing it to the Ryder Cup, but just, I don't think there was, I think everyone knows the Ryder Cup, knows the rules, how it works, who's in it, who's not. And I think there was a lot more confusion about the President's Cup, but I think they did a fantastic job this year of bringing that a little bit more, making it a little bit more accessible and understandable.
Yeah.
Which was really neat.
And I didn't see much TV coverage of it.
No, but you lived it.
but absolutely understand it. That totally makes sense to me. And I think what's really fun is that we've got some really great folks in the media who understand the significance of those team events and are really doing a great job as kind of society changes and viewership changes and the way we all watch and how many more viewers we have, and with social media and the whole interwebs world, that there's all these new faces. And because golf is so universal, I think they do a great job trying to get that information. People love those stories. The tour in the last couple of years has done a phenomenal job telling the stories of the players.
Agreed.
And of their lives and of the things that they care about and of their charitable works. And we get to work with them a lot, with our clients on that, and with our foundation personally. And they have really stepped up the last couple of years to really start to dive in to tell those stories. It's been incredible. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah, it was, I was at a Christmas party when USA won, and I was being super social and watching the President's Cup. That's what happens when you're at a party and you're 12, 13 weeks pregnant and no one else is. So I was like, they're all playing games, and I'm like, there's golf on.
Yes, turn golf on.
yeah. I'm like, and they're like, well, it's really late. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. They're in Australia. Like, it's not late for them.
Yeah, it's not late there.
No, not at all. But I think that you're so right with some of the stories, which is how I got back into golf so deeply, was reading about, watching on social media, these stories come out specifically around like the wives, the caddies, the coaches, and what they've done and what they continue to do for the game, because they just don't get highlighted enough, and they're such an integral part of the team. I mean, it was so interesting to me when when we had Paul on the podcast, we interviewed him right before the President's Cup, and he told us a story about Tiger. And then the week that it launched was the week of the President's Cup, and that story was everywhere. And it's
and that story was everywhere because Tiger wanted to repeat that story to embarrass my husband that week. That's exactly what you're talking. That's exactly what that family thing is. Everybody knew about that hat joke on Paul. Somehow I did not, and Tiger thought I did.
Oh, no.
And so the whole crew thought that I knew, I guess. And when the thing hit the internet and I'm getting pictures from players' wives and players and caddy. And I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm like, oh, this is too much. Joey LaCava, and that is what people don't see. And I think people love that stuff.
Oh my, they do.
I remember standing in the team room at the hotel after we won this year. And Dowd and I, Dowd said, you want to sit in the corner and we can people watch. It's fun, right? It's fascinating. There's a bunch of people in the room that we've not seen all week because they've been working all week. And Dowd and I we just love kind of sitting back. We don't drink. We're not going to get all up in that business. Mm-hmm. It's just not our style, but the two of us are much more comfortable just kind of sitting back. So we picked a table in the corner. We sat with our backs to the wall and we just kind of looked out. And I turned to Dowd at one point and I said, is it not incredible to you? Look around this room. We have some of the greatest athletes in the world, mm-hmm. all sitting in one place. And we're in this room. It is kind of overwhelming at times. It becomes normal. And then I'll look back and, we've got our photos with perhaps the greatest athlete ever in the world in Tiger Woods. And I'm looking back and I'm like, that's just an incredible moment that I think we start to take for granted on tour when you're out there. And we really need to check ourselves that these opportunities are few and far between. And just incredible. Those things are they get lost a little, but the stories are super fun to tell and they're fun to share. And it's exactly what's happening out there. And unless you're in it, you don't know it. So I love that the media started to tell some of those personal stories and what that golf family really looks like out there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I have so many girlfriends that are not into golf, but will listen to the podcast because it's not strictly like, this is what you do at the club and this is how you do this. I mean, I'm like, no, I don't really play. So there will be no instruction on this. Like, this is just about stories and fun and like the love on tour and getting to know fascinating people. Because when I had Paul on the podcast, he was like, I don't know why you want me on. Like, you really need to talk to Michelle. And when I talked to Kourtney Schenk a couple weeks ago, she was like, okay, it was great that you had Paul on the podcast, but you really need to get Michelle. So you have made an impact.
Let's talk about Kourtney.
Let's talk about Kourtney.
So, I love her. If you are not following her on Twitter, you are making a huge mistake. She's one of the wittiest humans you'll ever meet in your entire life. She and her husband, Adam, live a couple miles away from us. And we are actually quarantined at a lake house we closed on about a week before this mess hit.
Oh, jeez.
Incredible timing because it's not so terrible being locked up at a lake with a pool and a boat and a jet ski. It's not that bad. But that leaves our home a couple miles away from Kourtney and Adam's house. We go back and forth. We're only about 45 minutes away. Kourtney's Peloton. So I know the tour's been doing this ridiculous Peloton thing. Her Peloton is back home in Indiana, in the Midwest. Her Peloton, when they went home for the winter, they've got two homes. When they went home for the winter, she brought her Peloton with her. Well, mine is sitting at my house. That thing has been used every single day. Kourtney has been to my house. She's like, I have nothing to do. Can I just go? So she dubbed herself our house manager. She took out our trash this morning for us.
Yep. She talked about this on the podcast. I was cracking up.
I love her. I mean, I sometimes, most of the time I get a text. She's like, don't worry, it's just me breaking into your house. Sometimes I don't get a text at all. And one of our camera alerts goes off and Paul's like, there's a blonde girl. It could be Ashley or it could be Kourtney. I'm like, it's Kourtney. She's biking. It's a true story. That girl has been killing it on the Peloton this week. So now I got to get her to ride apparently with Billy Horschel and Bubba. So I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I've heard that there's a Peloton thing happening and Paul asked me if I was participating and I had to remind him that nobody cares how fast I can row my rowing machine here when they're biking on a Peloton and that our Peloton is in fact under Kourtney's care at our other house. So I got to get Kourtney competing and that girl can compete. So I'm going to text her as soon as we're done here and say, hey, I want you to find those latest numbers on Team Golf and see where you sit
That is
and challenge
so
some people. I love her. I am not exciting to listen to. I can't believe you've let me talk for this long.
Oh, please.
But I'm happy to do it for you, and love talking about all these things. And I hope people are not terribly bored with us and
not
chatting.
at all.
So, but Kourtney Schenk, follow her on Twitter. She's stinking funny. And she and I are doing a Bible study together. Our church's daily readings. We're doing it every morning. And you asked me about my morning routine. I've been getting up between 4:30 and 5, not by choice, because I'm not setting an alarm, but God just has me waking up at that hour. So before anybody else is up and the sunrise, which is spectacular here over the lake, I'm able to do my quiet time, which is awesome. I have been guilty for many years of not doing that first thing in the morning and then trying to squeeze it in the day. Priorities backwards. And I've been able to do it in the morning time. And it's just been this incredible gift. And Kourtney joined. And so she and I are doing it together. So we talk two things, Jesus and Peloton right now. Those are, and sometimes garbage and mail, but that's what she and I are talking about right now. Today it was Ephesians 5. So she and I are going to touch base later about Ephesians 5. Man, I love that girl. Again, another one of those friendships that, if not for golf, I love her. We absolutely adore her. Just phenomenal people. And they love our kids just endlessly. If you look into Kourtney's posts, she's not able to come. We can't let her come to the house right now, out to the lake, unfortunately, to protect Isaiah. But she was here right after we closed, and the selfies of her and Isaiah on the boat are hysterical. They're just it's so typical of her. She figured out, she was doing the countdown on her phone, and the two of them were trying to jump at the same time while the boat was moving to catch themselves midair. Hysterical. And she just loves our boy. She and Adam just love our kid. Our dogs play together. And tour life is fun. It's fun. I love that girl. I'm texting her right now, actually. I have my sound off, so I'm texting her from my computer while I'm talking to you.
And you were a big reason to why they came to the area in Florida that they did.
So golf, life, work. So Kelly met Kourtney out walking around on the course, and then we learned that Kourtney and Adam were looking to find a place in Florida. And we kind of love where we live. And I started learning more about Kourtney. I got to meet Kourtney, and we added her to do some project management to our PTI staff for a little bit.
Oh, cool.
And then she got engaged and had to plan a wedding. So, so then we sent Kourtney off to do her planning of a wedding thing. Wedding was amazing. Go look at those pictures. Holy moly. But yes, so in that process, getting to know Kourtney through work, she was part of our PTI team, and she mentioned that she and Adam were ready to close on this house somewhere else. And I'm like, hold on. Have you looked in Nocatee? And ta-da! She's now a couple miles from us in our neighborhood. The Duncans are right next to them. We have an entire golf crew that lives in a couple mile radius in Nocatee. And all of those girls were at Bible study the week at TPC. So, just a really cool group of young ladies out on tour. What a class act of young women and men that are now joining the tour the last couple of years. And Angie Watson and I joke about this all the time. We are the veterans.
Oh,
somehow.
goodness.
But we are, and we laugh about it. We laugh about two things quite regularly. Angie and I are like the odd couple. Every photo of the two of us, I'm about 5'4". Angie is not.
She is not. No, she is not.
Every photo of us is with me either standing on top of like a block so that I don't look so ridiculous, or you can just barely see my head in the photos of us. It's super fun. I love her.
That is so funny.
And so we were talking about this before. We've got our veteran group of women, and in the last several years, one of the really cool things about the tour is the tour is traditionally not known. When I came aboard the golf world in 2008, the tour wasn't like this. It just was not, the environment was just different. You felt a little disconnected, and you were kind of either in the in-group or you weren't. And caddies and caddies, wives and spouses, and particularly girlfriends, which is what I was at the time. I think we were engaged at the time. It just didn't blend that much. There was it's just different generations. It's how we all handle things differently. And over the last 10 years, it's been a tremendous change. And I think those of us who experienced how kind of awkward that could feel when you were out there, not knowing people, and you're walking with people you don't know, and everybody's uncomfortable, and you want to meet people, but you don't really know how to meet people.
Right.
And, I think what changed is that a young group of women started coming out on tour, and all of us just stopped being scared about it. Like, you know what? I don't care what it traditionally has been, of the separation of players and caddies, or whatever that looks like. And how much of that is manifested by just being scared to change it. So we just changed it. We just made a decision, and then we just started connecting. And it's really cool because Kourtney and I are not close to the same age, and I adore her. And watching her in her young years in golf with Adam is so fun and so exciting. And you kind of forget all those really cool things, celebrating the Duncan's first win. Those are things you start to take for granted when you work for a guy like Webb Simpson. And these things become more standard.
Yeah.
You know, we had a Team Simpson lull when the putting ban went into place. And I know how important that Players Championship win was to Webb and to Paul. Those were hard years. And what you learn in those hard years is you can't take those wins and those top tens and those Ryder Cups and President's Cups for granted. And watching the young crew come out and experience the fight for those things is really cool. It's a lot of fun. Those are the people right now. I worry about that crew with these events all canceled, earning those points and keeping your card. It is far more complicated than people understand. World Golf Rankings, FedEx Cup points. You can't even, it's math that is beyond comprehension, particularly World Golf Rankings. And when you don't have an event to replace an event from 2 years ago, and that will make sense to about 5 people, the World Golf Rankings thing just goes to crap.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happen in your golf career based off your World Golf Rankings, lots of invitations, ability to play in tournaments. It's a lot. The FedEx Cup, it's a lot. There are guys that are fighting to keep their cards that this is far more significant for. And for guys on the Korn Ferry Tour, we need to pray for that crew.
I know. I don't know how they're doing it.
It's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. It's a lot. So, you know, what a cool group that we're all checking in on each other. We need to do a better job. Kourtney just texted me back too, so she must not be biking right now. Or maybe she is. I don't know. And I'm going to tell her I'm on a podcast with you. I'm literally telling her I'm on a podcast right now talking about you. Okay. How cool is that? Like, I could not have imagined that this would be my life. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to get to know so many people from all over the world and of all different ages. It's a golf space we're all familiar with. It's unlike anything else. It's unlike any other sport I've ever participated in, played, been a member of, worked for. And it's greater than I ever could have imagined. And the hard parts of it, you figure out as a family. Yeah. And you get your own support system, and you work really hard, and you pray a lot. And we're just super thankful. We're like, having the opportunity to just chat with you is something I never would have had otherwise. So how cool is golf?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, and I say this to people all the time. I say it on the podcast. I say it every time after a podcast. Anytime I talk about it, I am just so amazed at how wonderful everyone is. I mean, when we started this, I was like, no one's going to want to talk to us. This is going to be so weird, whatever. And every time we talk to someone, they're like, you need to talk to this person, or what about this, or something like that. And everyone is just so open and willing to share. And happy to tell a story, and I feel like have a platform that they didn't always have until, just like you were saying earlier, the past couple of years with the media, because it just wasn't really out there.
Yes, I agree. It's a blessing, and I think what this downtime gives an opportunity for the media outlets to cover is more of the human side and not the competitive side.
Yes.
And the sport side of what golf looks like. And
Yes.
This is part of that. So thanks for the opportunity to chat about life stuff.
Absolutely. This has been absolutely incredible. I still have chills going back to like the first 30 minutes of our interview, and talking about Isaiah and everything. I'm so excited that you and I got to connect. I would love to play a quick 9 with you if you have a couple extra minutes.
You got it. Let's
All right.
go.
What is
also, before we go,
Yes.
Kourtney and I would like you to know that we both think we talk too much. All right.
Oh my God,
moving
stop
on.
it.
We did. Kourtney just said, I blabber. I'm like, yeah, me too. All right. So here we go. Quick 9. I'm ready.
What's your favorite season?
Spring, but it doesn't exist in Florida, but spring.
And it kind of doesn't exist
We
this
missed
year
it.
because the Masters didn't happen. So that is the kickoff of spring, right?
It's today. I'm not
It's
kidding.
today.
Spring is today. Spring season, there's a really great meme that goes out there about that, but this won't be a quick 9 if I talk about that. So spring, wherever it exists, is my favorite.
Perfect. Read a book or listen to music?
Read the Bible.
Okay. If you could live anywhere on earth, where would it be?
I'm pretty sure right here.
Oh, love that. What was your first job?
Babysitting, again, this will age me, but back then we were babysitting at like 12.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's just what we did. So babysitting would be the first paid job. We were making $5 an hour was a really big deal back then. So that was my first paid job, babysitting.
What is Torture Tuesday?
There are about 100 people who would like to tell you how they feel about Torture Tuesday, but it is not safe language to. So I have a passion for fitness, and I've been a group exercise certified instructor for 25 years, maybe a little bit longer. And so I was teaching in Ponte Vedra right by TPC for many, many years. And I have a tendency to be accused of being like a Jillian Michaels kind of trainer.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. Look, if you found Torture Tuesday, you can find bodybyrobes.com, and there are videos there. So one of my best friends, Tara Costa, was on The Biggest Loser. And so she and I joke a lot that there's some Jillian in me when I teach. Torture Tuesday, my workouts are based off what's the most effective, efficient way for me to get a really good workout, because I don't have a ton of time. Never have my whole life. Just busy, have always worked really long hours, or had multiple jobs. And so workouts had to get much shorter the older I got and the more busy I got. So Torture Tuesday is the worst kind of workout torture that includes ridiculous. My friend Wanda, who sits on our board, would tell you they're made up names like bunny hop burpees. And she's like, I don't care what you call them. They suck still. I hate them. Torture Tuesday. I miss it, man. I miss Torture Tuesdays. That was a fun group. The gym used to keep track of how many people would throw up. They kept track. Good time. Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
I miss those days. Good time.
Would you rather do dinner in a movie or an escape room?
Escape room.
Ooh, I like it. What is a habit that you have now that you wish you would have started earlier in life?
Reading the Bible consistently.
What can't you live without in the gym?
So it's changed slightly the older I have gotten. I would say right now it's body weight. It's amazing. It turns out you don't actually need the gym at all.
Right.
I used to, my previous answer to that would have been free weight. that you can basically do anything you need to do with free weights in some capacity. I still use them, but you would not believe how effective your own body weight is. So,
especially at a time like
now, healthy body, what you cannot live without in the gym is a pain-free body.
Yes. Oh, that's such a good answer.
Pain-free body. Water. The answer is water. That would be the thing I cannot live without in the gym. Water. Hydration.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Last one. Home cooked meal or takeout?
It depends on who's cooking. A home cooked meal if Paul is cooking, not if I'm cooking. You don't want any part of that. But if we're doing takeout, there's a sushi place that we're kind of obsessed with. So I would always choose sitting at home with my family. But if I can have food delivered from a really cool takeout place, I'm kind of 50-50.
I love it.
You just don't want me cooking. The answer is C. You don't want me responsible for the cooking or the preparation of any kind. I can make salad. I'm terrible in the kitchen. Absolutely terrible. It's embarrassing. It's about as embarrassing as me playing tennis. That's a good story. You should ask Paul sometime.
Oh, perfect.
I'm terrible. Absolutely terrible at it. Yep.
So, Michelle, it has been an absolute pleasure. I just so enjoyed our conversation. I can't wait to hopefully meet you out on tour when everything picks back up again. But in the meantime, where can we find you and the Tesori Family Foundation to continue this conversation online?
You gotcha. It's TesoriFamilyFoundation.org. Paul is a far more exciting follow on all social media platforms. So he is at Paul Tesori. I am not exciting, but I am at Mrs. Tesori. And you can find kind of everything you need about everything. And then if you're interested in any of the nonprofit work specifically, our clients are amazing. PTIsportsmarketing.com. So we're kind of everywhere.
You are. And we are following you everywhere and look forward to sharing all of the adventures once the PGA Tour kicks back off so that we can see the All-Star Kids Clinic and see what you're doing with your 321 Classic and Buddy Baskets. We will also make sure to link the Tesori Family Foundation on our website. So if anyone would like to go and see what they're doing or make a donation, we will make it exceptionally easy for you.
Well, that is very, very sweet. Everybody stay healthy. You particular. Take care of that baby.
Thank you. We'll keep you posted. We'll send pictures as soon as we get them.
Do it.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks,
all right.
honey.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining me today. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the action. See you soon.